There are places in America where time doesn't move forward. It just waits. On the corner of Jefferson and Maple, there's a bus stop that doesn't show up on postcards. No landmark, no mural, no reason for anyone to stop and look. But every morning, before the sun fully rises, people gather there, not to talk, not to laugh, just to stand. Some of them have been standing in the same place for years. They wait for a bus that is often late. They wait for jobs that promise more than they deliver. They wait for calls that never come. They wait for a version of life they were told would arrive if they just stayed patient. And patience in this country has never been distributed equally. This is not a story about crime. It is not a story about anger. It is not even a story about injustice, at least not the loud kind. This is a story about waiting, and about what waiting quietly does to a person. Marcus Reed never missed the 6:10 a.m. bus. Not once in 11 years. Rain didn't matter, snow didn't matter, the flu didn't matter. He would wake up at 4:50, sit on the edge of the bed for exactly 60 seconds, and let the stiffness leave his knees before standing. His wife used to joke that his body ran on a clock tighter than the city's transit system, but Marcus never laughed at that joke because the truth was simpler. If he missed that bus, the day collapsed. Marcus worked maintenance at a downtown office tower, not the kind with windows that opened, the kind where other people's fingerprints covered the glass while he cleaned the hallways before anyone arrived. The job paid enough to survive, not enough to move, not enough to rest. Marcus had once dreamed of being an electrician. He even finished most of the coursework, but when his mother got sick, dreams became optional and rent did not, so he learned to wait. In America, promises are often spoken without deadlines. Soon, next year, when things improve. Marcus heard those words his entire adult life. The promotion that was coming, the raise that was under review, the certification program that was paused for budget reasons. Every time he asked, the answer sounded reasonable, calm, professional, polite, and that was the hardest part, because how do you fight something that never raises its voice? At home, Marcus kept the lights low, not because electricity was expensive, but because silence felt safer when it was dim. His son Elijah was 14 and already taller than him. A good kid, quiet, observant, too observant. Elijah once asked, "Dad, why do you work so hard if it never changes?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked at his hands instead. Responsibility is praised in speeches, but it is punished in practice. Marcus never protested, never called in sick, unless he couldn't stand, never complained to management. He believed genuinely that dignity would protect him. But dignity doesn't show up in payroll systems. When layoffs came, they didn't start with the loud employees. They started with the quiet ones, the dependable ones, the people who didn't make trouble. On a Tuesday afternoon, Marcus was called into an office with no windows. He was thanked for his service. He was told the decision was difficult. He was handed a folder with papers already printed. He took the same bus home that evening. Same route, same stops, same waiting. But this time something had shifted. Not anger, not shock, something heavier. The strange thing about losing a job isn't the fear, it's the silence. Marcus woke up the next morning at 4:50 a.m., out of habit. His body didn't know the rules had changed. For a moment, he sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for the stiffness to fade, just like always. Then he remembered. No uniform to put on, no bus to catch, no place that expected him to arrive. He stayed seated longer than usual, not because he was tired, but because standing up meant admitting the routine was gone. In the kitchen, the clock kept ticking like it always had. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, someone's car alarm chirped once and stopped. The world hadn't paused with him. That's when the weight began to settle. Not in his chest, but in his calendar. Every empty hour started asking questions. Marcus didn't tell anyone at first, not his neighbors, not his friends, not even his brother, who lived 3 states away and always asked the same question, "You good?" He answered the same way every time, "Yeah, I'm good." Because unemployment isn't just a financial condition, it's a social one. People don't know where to place you anymore. Conversations change tone. Advice replaces listening. Marcus applied everywhere. Online portals, walk-ins, temporary agencies with fluorescent lights and clipboards that smelled like disinfectant. Every application asked the same thing: explain any gaps in employment. Marcus stared at that question longer than any other. How do you explain loyalty that outlived its usefulness? The job market spoke a new language now. Algorithms, keywords, automated rejections sent at 2:13 a.m. Marcus learned quickly that experience meant less than formatting. He watched tutorials late at night, adjusting margins, changing fonts, swapping words that felt dishonest. Facilities maintenance became operational support technician. It sounded better. It felt worse. Each rejection arrived politely. "Thank you for your interest. We regret to inform you. Best of luck in your future endeavors."
Luck.
That word kept showing up, as if effort had never entered the conversation. Elijah noticed before Marcus said anything. He noticed the way groceries changed, the way conversations stopped when he entered the room, the way his father stayed up later and woke up earlier. One evening, Elijah asked if he could get a job after school. Marcus said no too quickly, not because he didn't need the help, but because the idea landed like an accusation. Elijah nodded. He didn't argue. He just went back to his room. Later that night, Marcus stood outside his son's door, listening to music play softly through cheap headphones. The sound reminded him of his own teenage years, when the future still felt wide instead of narrow. That night, Marcus cried quietly for the first time in decades, not because he had failed, but because he didn't know how to explain effort without results. The offer came unexpectedly. A subcontracting company needed night workers for warehouse sanitation. No benefits, short-term contract, physically demanding. The pay was lower than his old job. Marcus accepted immediately, because waiting without motion feels worse than exhaustion. The warehouse was loud, even at night. Machines beeped, forklifts hummed. The smell of chemicals hung in the air, sharp enough to sting the nose. Most of the workers didn't talk much. They moved fast, too fast, as if slowing down might cost them the job. Marcus moved fast too. He learned quickly that this job had no patience for age, or injury, or explanation. You either kept up or disappeared. Supervisors rotated often. Instructions changed nightly. Mistakes were addressed publicly. One night, Marcus was told he wasn't hustling enough. The word stuck. He had hustled his entire life, just not loudly. He adjusted his pace, ignored the pain in his shoulder, took shorter breaks, drank more coffee than his stomach could handle. At home, his wife noticed the limp. Marcus told her it was nothing, because sometimes saying nothing feels easier than admitting something might break. The turning point didn't arrive with drama. No shouting, no confrontation, no music swelling in the background. It arrived as a clipboard. A supervisor asked Marcus to sign a form acknowledging responsibility for a safety issue he hadn't caused. Marcus read it twice. Signing meant protection for the company. Refusing meant risk for himself. For a long moment, he stood there while machines roared behind him. Other workers avoided eye contact. Everyone understood the rules. Marcus put the pen down. He said calmly, "I can't sign that." The supervisor looked surprised, then annoyed, then bored. "Suit yourself," he said. Marcus finished his shift. He was not scheduled again. At home, Marcus explained what happened. His wife listened without interrupting. When he finished, she asked one question: "Would you sign it again?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "No," she nodded. That was it. No argument, no blame, just understanding and fear quietly sharing the same space. That night, Marcus lay awake, thinking about how often dignity and survival are presented as opposites, and how often people are forced to choose. Bills stacked up slowly, not dramatically, just enough to feel permanent. Marcus sold things he didn't need first, then things he liked, then things that mattered.
I can offer you $50 for the watch and the book.
I was hoping for a bit more. Could you do 75?
60 is the highest I can go.
He avoided mirrors more often now, not because he looked different, but because he felt smaller. And yet, every morning, he still woke up early, not for work, but because his body remembered responsibility, even when the world no longer rewarded it. There's a building on the east side of the city that most people only notice when they need it. No sign out front, no fresh paint, just a narrow doorway between a closed laundromat and a storefront that never quite opens. Inside, folding chairs line the walls. A coffee pot stays warm all day, even when no one is drinking. Marcus came there because someone told him they helped with job placement. What they didn't say was that the place also helped with something else: perspective. The people inside weren't lazy, they weren't careless, they weren't reckless, they were tired. Some had worked 30 years and been replaced by software. Some had injuries that never healed correctly. Some had records that followed them longer than any sentence. Marcus listened more than he spoke. For the first time in months, he didn't feel invisible. One afternoon, Marcus met a man named Harold. Harold was older, slower, but when he spoke, people listened. Harold didn't offer advice, he offered stories about factories that closed overnight, about pensions that disappeared quietly, about promises that were technically kept, just not in spirit. "You did everything right," Harold told Marcus once. "That's what makes it hurt." That sentence stayed with him, because no one had said that out loud before. The shift at home didn't come from Marcus, it came from Elijah. One evening, while doing homework at the kitchen table, Elijah asked a question that felt heavier than it sounded. "Dad, if working hard doesn't always work, what does?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He realized he had spent his entire life demonstrating effort, but never explaining purpose, so he told the truth. "That's the wrong question," Marcus said. "The real one is, who do you become while you're trying?" Elijah listened, not like a kid waiting for reassurance, like someone building a foundation. Marcus began volunteering at the center, not officially, not on paper. He helped people fill out forms, explained resumes, translated system language into human language. He wasn't paid, but he was needed. And that did something money hadn't done in a long time. It returned weight to his presence. People asked for his help, remembered his name, trusted his calm. Marcus realized something quietly unsettling. The system had removed him from productivity, but not from value. Eventually, a job came. Not a miracle, not a redemption arc, a small facilities role at a public school. Modest pay, stable hours, union-backed. When the offer arrived, Marcus read it slowly, twice. This job wouldn't make him rich. It wouldn't erase the past year, but it would let him breathe. He accepted, not because it saved him, but because it respected him. Marcus's days became predictable again, but this time, predictability felt earned, not demanded. He fixed broken doors, replaced lights, learned the names of students who lingered after class because home wasn't peaceful. Some mornings he stood in the hallway before anyone arrived, listening to the building wake up, and he felt something unfamiliar: pride, without exhaustion attached. America measures success loudly: income, titles, visibility, but it rarely measures endurance or quiet sacrifice or the ability to remain decent when decency cost you. Marcus never became famous, never went viral, never proved anyone wrong, but his son watched him, and sometimes that's the audience that matters most. On his first day at the school, Marcus waited at a different bus stop. New route, new time, but the same quiet faces surrounded him. He recognized the look now. Not laziness, not failure, waiting. The bus arrived late. No one complained. Marcus smiled to himself, not because things were perfect, but because he finally understood something important. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. Sometimes it means surviving long enough to remain human. This story won't end with applause. It ends the way most lives do, with continuity, with people waking up early, doing what needs to be done, carrying weight no one sees. And if you're watching this, still here, still listening, then maybe you recognize yourself somewhere in the quiet. And maybe that recognition is enough, for now. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Unveiled Fables and tap the bell to be notified when the next story arrives.